Good morning. The first item of business is general questions. At question number 1, I call Ros McCall.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the latest homelessness in Scotland statistics.
Cabinet Secretary Mary McCallan.
The statistics, Presiding Officer, they demonstrate the scale of the challenge that we face in reducing homelessness. Earlier this month, I delivered my Housing Emergency Action Plan, which sets out the direct and immediate measures that will be taken to prevent homelessness, to deliver more affordable homes and to make better use of existing stock. This includes up to £4.9 billion over the next 4 years to deliver around 36,000 affordable homes, doubling our acquisition funding this year to £80 million, allowing councils to act now to acquire family-sized homes and get children out of temporary accommodation, and a £4 million investment in the expansion of Housing First. And of course, this week we have been hearing Stage 3 of the Housing Bill, which, if passed, will create a gold standard anti-homelessness law in the form of Ask and Act.
Ros McCall.
Presiding Officer, the Cabinet Secretary, I'm glad to hear, has agreed that there is a problem. We've got 10,000 children currently in temporary accommodation, some spending years in limbo. That figure is stagnant. We have recently found out from a report in the Herald that there has been nearly 40,000 violations of homelessness regulations by Scottish local authorities in the past 8 years, with that number almost doubling in the last year alone. We have a housing emergency, there is a homelessness crisis, and nothing seems to be changing. So when does the Cabinet Secretary believe that the money and the policies that she continually champions will finally improve the situation for the people of Scotland?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, Presiding Officer, I will never see the statistics that came out last week and claim that they're anything other than stark and requiring urgent action. We have been dealing in recent years with a perfect storm of difficulties, with the prevailing economic situation being in a stagnant or downward trajectory, and household finances being severely under pressure with inflation and cost of living, pandemic, Brexit, etc. And that has meant that despite Scotland's having some of the most protective anti-homelessness laws of any country, we are in a difficult situation. That's why the Housing Emergency Plan that I set out takes action across 3 areas: ending children living in unsuitable accommodation, supporting the housing needs of vulnerable communities, and that third pillar, building our future, investing in new and affordable homes. So that, combined with the actions that we've been taking since May last year, I hope will very quickly make a difference. But of course there's much of this which is out with our control, not least social security, and I would take this opportunity to urge the UK Government to, for example, reverse the bedroom tax.
Jeremy Balfour.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. As you just heard, it's been reported that more than 16,000 housing violations have happened in just the past year. Will the Cabinet Secretary acknowledge this report calling its housing emergency declaration a sham after breaches of a legal duty to provide homeless people, including children and pregnant women, have doubled in just 1 year?
Cabinet Secretary.
No, I wouldn't agree with that characterisation. What I would absolutely say is that breaches of statutory obligations by councils are not acceptable. But that's exactly why I am working with local authorities, in particular those, the top 5 with the most strained homelessness services, to drive action now. And we drive action now in particular through that acquisitions fund that the Government has now been providing for a number of years, which I doubled in the statement to the 2nd of September to £80 million. That is exactly about asking councils to go now to acquire family homes on the market and get children out of temporary accommodation with that. Another instruction that was part of that plan was asking councils to adopt the Alacho guidance on flipping, contacting people living in accommodation which is otherwise suitable except that it's temporary, and discuss with the household whether that can be flipped to their permanent accommodation. These actions are about taking action now, and that's all backed up by more investment over the next 4 years.
Thank you. Question number 2 has been withdrawn. At question number 3, I call Jamie Halcrow-Johnston.
To ask the Scottish Government how many free personal care hours were assessed by local authorities to be needed, but were subsequently not delivered in 2024-25.
Minister Tom Arthur.
The information the member has requested for 2024-25 has not yet been published. However, data from previous years that focuses on free personal nursing care uptake is available on the Scottish Government's website, which provides published statistics. The 2024-25 data has a release date of November 2025. The The Scottish Government recognises the cost of care can be high for people self-funding their residential care. This is why we have increased the rates paid for free personal nursing care rates by 29.5% since April 2020, providing an additional investment of £40 million over the last 3 years.
Jamie Halker-Johnston.
Thank the Minister for that answer, although I would welcome a little bit more kind of detail looking forward. Of course, local councils assess and deliver free personal care, but it was legislated in this Parliament, and the SNP's website hails the policy as one of the landmark achievements of devolutions. But too many older and vulnerable people across my Highlands and Islands region are being left waiting months, if not years, for the support they've been assessed as needing. Some are left languishing in already crowded hospitals because there's not the care support available to get them to their homes or a place in our under-pressure care homes. So does the Minister accept the seriousness of the situation across the Highlands and Islands and across Scotland? And without repeating the usual excuses, what does he say to those waiting for the care support they've been assessed as needing but are left waiting to receive?
Minister.
Well, let me be clear, I do not want to see anyone unduly waiting for the care that they have been assessed as requiring. We are working constructively and collaboratively with our partners across local government. Intensely, that is work that has been led on by the Cabinet Secretary, supported by myself, and we are going to continue to do so. We have put significant additional investment into health and social care this year, £21.7 billion, £2.2 billion into social care, which has exceeded what our original commitment had been, and we will continue to engage constructively with partners to drive forward improvements.
Christine Graham.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Has the Labour Government's increase in employers' national insurance had an impact on delivery of free personal care?
Minister.
Regrettably, it has, as the sector has expressed very clearly since the outset of the year. The costs that are going to be incurred by the sector as a consequence of the UK Government's decision to increase employer national insurance contributions will have a material impact. Indeed, we estimate this will cost the sector over £80 million this year. This is, of course, further compounded by the decisions of the UK Labour Government around restricting international visas for care workers. Again, something that has been roundly condemned by those operating in the sector, and I would urge the UK Government to reverse course.
Question number 4, Liam MacArthur.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had with NHS Orkney regarding reported delays in ophthalmology appointments for patients.
Minister Jenny Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. During a visit to the Balfour Hospital on the 15th of July, the Cabinet Secretary met with NHS Orkney's senior team to discuss their operational improvement plan and the progress being made through our additional investment of nearly £73,000 in ophthalmology. This was allocated to NHS Orkney to ensure no patient is waiting longer than 52 weeks for a new outpatient appointment or inpatient day case admission by 31st March 2026. Additionally, the Scottish Government commissioned Centre for Sustainable Delivery and officials to meet regularly with the board. This year, NHS Orkney have had a clinical services review and an ophthalmology clinically led peer review, which have made recommendations in order to deliver sustainable services for their patients.
Liam MacArthur.
Can I thank the Minister for that response? And at that meeting the Cabinet Secretary had at the Balfour, I'm sure he was made aware of the significant backlogs in ophthalmology appointments in Orkney. I've been contacted by constituents who report waits of up to and exceeding 3 years for treatment. From my discussions with NHS Orkney, I know they are trying to take steps to reduce these backlogs, but given that some patients face permanent sight loss while waiting for treatment, will the Scottish Government commit to providing additional support in the short term to help tackle these unacceptable waits?
Minister.
I thank Liam MacArthur for his supplementary question, and these exact topics were discussed with the Cabinet Secretary when he visited in July. I'm very happy to consider and look at the proposal that Mr MacArthur makes. I know that NHS Orkney has had access to the Global Citizen post for ophthalmology, sharing with NHS Highland, Orkney and the Western Isles, but that post is currently unfilled, and NHS Orkney and Highland have been working together as to how additional capacity can be delivered. But I absolutely recognise the concerns that are raised, and where in other areas of healthcare we're able to work across healthcare boundaries, I would hope something similar could be worked out for this.
Question number 5, Maggie Chapman.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on any discussions that it has had with Police Scotland about the policing of protests outside hotels and other accommodation for people seeking asylum.
Minister Siobhan Brown.
Presiding Officer, Scottish ministers have regular discussions with Police Scotland on a range of issues, including the policing of protests. Operational policing is a matter for Police Scotland, and they have confirmed that they have the appropriate resources to ensure the safety of those in attendance and to mitigate disruption to the wider community. Police Scotland is a rights-based organisation committed to facilitating peaceful protests and counter-demonstrations to allow those seeking to protest to exercise their human rights. But let me be clear. There is no place for criminality or hate crime on our streets, and I fully support Police Scotland to take the appropriate and proportionate action in response to such behaviour.
Maggie Chapman.
In the North East, we've seen anti-immigration protests in Peterhead, West Hill, Aberdeen and Dundee. The Stobswell Forum in Dundee issued a statement highlighting the fear and alarm caused by these so-called protesters following their actions in a public park. The same protesters then marched in an unorganised way over the A90 Kingsway and held an intimidating and hate-filled protest outside the homes of asylum seekers. They spread false information, anti-immigration information online, causing fear and alarm amongst parents of young children. They hurled stones and other missiles at anti-fascists. What proactive action is being taken to respond to the far-right influence on these protests and the intimidation they cause to residents and local communities?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am deeply concerned about some of the rhetoric we are seeing across the UK, which should have no place in our society. Therefore, it is vital that factual information is also placed in the public domain. And I would say, as elected members across the UK, that as democratically elected representatives with a platform, we have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that we call out any dangerous misinformation. And we certainly do not perpetrate it. People have the right of peaceful protest in a democracy, but the protests outside the hotels go far beyond what is acceptable in our country, which historically has a humane approach to those fleeing conflict and persecution, and one which we should be proud. These protests are creating a sense of real fear and alarm to those who have already gone through so much already. In saying that, it is important that we engage with the people protesting, to hear their concerns, to understand the reasons that are driving them to protest. And I know Police Scotland continue to engage with protesters through liaison officers, and the Scottish Government has funded the Centre for Good Relations to work with those who are protesting to hear their concerns.
Mercedes Villalba.
Thank you. I'm aware, obviously, we've brought in legislation to create boundaries, buffer zones around clinics to prevent people accessing services from being harassed. I wonder what consideration the Minister or the Government has given to establishing some kind of boundary around residential dwellings to prevent people in their homes being harassed.
Minister.
Thank you. The right to free speech and protest is at the heart of a healthy democracy, and the Scottish Government is committed to uphold the right, but understands the distress that these protests are causing to residents across asylum accommodation. Creating buffer zones, similar to those introduced with the abortion clinics, would require new legislation, and we don't have any current plans to do that, but we will continue to monitor the situation.
Question number 6, Jackie Dunbar.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the steps that it has taken to increase service capacity in GP practices within NHS Grampian.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Thank you, President Officer. In August, I announced that additional investment of £15 million in general practice. GP practices in Grampian will receive £1.5 million of this funding, which builds on the increased investment of over £100 million we have already made in general practice over the last 2 years. We've been listening carefully to the views of GPs, and this new investment will help ease financial pressures, support workforce retention and recruitment, build service capacity and support the day-to-day running of GP services in Grampian and indeed across Scotland. And we remain in discussions with the sector on the provision of further support in the future, but this initial instalment demonstrates this Government's commitment to making it easier for people to see their GP and to ensuring more NHS funding goes into primary and community care.
Jackie Dunbar.
The Cabinet Secretary will, of course, be aware of the recent pressures facing NHS Grampian, as he just said, and I know he will join me in thanking all of the NHS staff in Grampian who have been working hard to manage these pressures. Can he please, therefore, provide any further update on how the Scottish Government is supporting NHS Grampian to relieve their pressures and ensure patients are receiving the care they need in a timely fashion?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer. I thank Jackie Dunbar for her question. I am indeed aware of the pressures, and I echo the thanks to staff in NHS Grampian for their commitment, their hard work, their dedication to provide the best care possible. There are people still waiting too long in Grampian and elsewhere, and this is not good enough. Our budget provides a record £21.7 billion for health and social care, with over £110 million to tackle the longest waits. NHS Grampian are receiving over £9 million to support specialties with the longest waits, and we have established an assurance board to agree an improvement plan. Grampian has also welcomed a new Chief Executive this week, and we will ensure the board has the support to deliver the plan and address any further opportunities for improvement.
Alexander Burnett.
Thank the Presiding Officer. Now, constituents are becoming increasingly concerned about the lack of oversight of privately contracted GP surgeries such as Arford Medical Practice, which has a ratio of 1 GP to 6,000 patients, over 3 times higher than the national average. Now, the company poorly delivering this NHS Grampian contract is also serving Ayrshire. Now, whilst health boards have visibility of who they contract GP practices with, they do not have visibility of contracts that are held with other health boards, and this makes it impossible to hold accurate data on GP to patient ratios, as GPs may work across different practices and different health boards. So can I ask, what steps will the Cabinet Secretary take to ensure full transparency on contracted medical practices across Scotland?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. I thank Alexander Burnett for his question. He understands the nature of the contractual obligations that are in place through the contract, and indeed the obligations that are on boards to have line of sight around ensuring that GP practices are delivering on their contractual obligations. The point that he has raised around the particular practice he quotes is concerning, and I'd be keen to be furnished with further detail from him on that, to ensure that everything possible can be done to ensure that we do have a level of GP to patient ratio that would be commensurate with ensuring the type of services that we expect and the level of access that we expect, which has been made plain and clear to both GPs and to health boards.
Question number 7, Claire Haughey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it supports youth employment in the Rutherglen constituency, including through youth employability services.
Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes.
Employment support for young people begins in a school setting through Skills Development Scotland's career services and developing the young workforce. Additional support for those who have left school without a positive destination is available through devolved employability services, and that support is available in every local authority area in Scotland.
Claire Haughey.
I thank the Deputy First Minister for that answer. Roots to Work South, based in Cambuslang in my constituency, is an award-winning employment champion who offers packages of tailored support and training, including to many young people, and are celebrating 20 years of operation this year. Would the Minister share my concern that if the DWP's proposed closure of Cambuslang Job Centre is to go ahead, a vital link between the services is at risk in a sector where partnership working is so vital?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I absolutely understand and share the member's concern about the proposed job centre closure. Access to support could become more difficult if that is to go ahead. And I also recognise the importance of Roots to Work South's 20 years of support in Cambuslang. It's so important that there is strong cross-sector partnership in delivering services, and these collaborations through community-led initiatives, local organisations and integrated services will continue to evolve and provide vital support.
A concise question 8, Emma Roddick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the Distress Brief Intervention Programme.
Minister Tom Arthur.
Since November 2024, the Distress Brief Intervention Programme has been live in all 31 health and social care partnership areas across Scotland for those aged 16 and over. We also have free national referral pathways to DBI via NHS 24 and via call handling centres operated by both the Scottish Ambulance Service and Police Scotland. These provide additional options for key services to refer people to DBI support.
Emma Roddick.
I thank the Minister for that answer. I'd be interested in what data on representation rates for individuals who have received DBI support has been collected and how it compares to previous representation rates for people in distress.
Minister.
I will be happy to write to the member to provide that specific information.